can't believe you attacked the Imperial base!
It is the Empire who polluted our sea and pillaged our land. I've watched the planet of my youth be stripped and exploited, and it has to stop right now!
I love this planet, and I love Papa too. And as his heir, that's exactly why I have to turn to the Empire.
She's sensible enough to understand the many benefits the Empire can offer. And she promised us that she could put a stop to this foolish little insurrection.
Obi-Wan, you were imagining being a Jedi again, weren't you? Well, enough of that.
That's because I want to become a Jedi one day, traveling the galaxy, defeating evil.
Surrender! And we just might spare your life.
You're confused.
What?
You'll surrender, although I won't be sparing your lives.
Lightsabers. She's a Sith.
What did you see? I'm not sure. The vision of someone being killed repeatedly.
Someone else should go in your stead. If you go, you will be tempted and it will cloud your judgment.
With you by my side, we will be able to rule together, and we will bring order to the galaxy. We can then protect the planet. We can protect your precious Misa as well.
Protect her. She's dead.
Are you sure? Why don't we try to save Misa together?
Welcome to A Conspiracy in the Force, the show where we examine parallel conspiracies in a galaxy far, far away and a galaxy not so far away. The show is designed as an introduction to modern-day conspiracy theories by using Star Wars, one of the most beloved fictional universes, as a point of reference. Let's begin.
Hey, Conspiracy Kyle here. If you like this podcast, please rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. It greatly helps out the show, and it's much appreciated. Also, please follow me on Twitter and Instagram at conspiracy_Kyle, and that's conspiracy with a K. Also, follow me on YouTube at Conspiracy Kyle, once again with a K. And also, now you can find me on the Rockfin Network at rockfin.com with new exclusive content. Now on to the show. This episode is titled Star Wars Visions. I just finished watching the new miniseries that just debuted called Star Wars Visions. This series contained 9 completely different short stories, which were about 10 to 20 minutes each, that were standalone episodes that were far removed from the storylines and characters of the other episodes. Now, what made this series so interesting was that it was done in a style far removed from traditional Star Wars storytelling. This series was created and produced in the Japanese anime style by several of the best anime production companies in the world. You know, I was a bit apprehensive going into the series because of this idea. I wasn't really sure how this was going to translate in the Star Wars universe. And I was also a big fan of their prior animated series like The Clone Wars and The Bad Batch, so I wasn't sure how this style would stack up to those prior series. Now, in my younger years, I was a big fan of the anime shows that were popularized here in America, like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, Gundam Wing, and Yu-Gi-Oh! I was also a big fan of some of the feature film anime movies like Vampire Hunter D and Ghost in the Shell. You know, interestingly enough, the production company who created Ghost in the Shell was involved with the Vision series as well. Now, all in all, I thought the series was pretty good. Some episodes stood out more than others, and some were pretty forgettable in my opinion. Some of my least favorite episodes seem to be just generic anime with a Star Wars lightsaber or throwaway Star Wars quote in there. Not necessarily fully engulfed in the mythology of Star Wars, so it is what it is there. My favorite episode stylistically was the very first episode titled The Duel, which featured a roaming Ronin warrior facing off against a Sith. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the term Ronin, Ronin is basically a Japanese term for a samurai that doesn't have a master. What was so impressive about this episode was not only that it was done in a black and white animation style, which was pretty awesome on its own, but that it also added some wear and tear to the footage, almost like you were watching one of the 1950s Akira Kurosawa movies like Seven Samurai, where there was a bit of grainy film footage that was added on as an effect, so I thought that was pretty cool. The best episode story-wise was an episode titled The Ninth Jedi, which had a really cool mystery vibe to it, where several unknown Jedi that had never met before received an invitation to meet each other at an unknown location, and the plot thickened as to who was a Jedi and who was a Sith. Think back to all those movies where 9 strangers met at a mysterious mansion or something crazy happened in a horror movie in a faraway mansion. I kind of got that vibe from it, so that was pretty cool. On this episode, I want to talk about some of the themes I noticed in Star Wars Visions, as well as some conspiracies and occult elements I noticed. The biggest theme that I saw throughout this series was the concept of war and Imperial oppression, or the result of war in Imperial oppression. In The Duel, you see a village being invaded by bandits who had been pillaging the land and forcing villagers to pay dues to them. These bandits took advantage of a war-torn planet, the war of which is unknown in the story, and they preyed upon all those who were affected by this war. This is a very similar concept to what you saw in Akira Kurosawa's film Seven Samurai, where you saw raiders lying in wait for a village's crops to be harvested before they would attack them and take it for themselves. In both The Duel and Seven Samurai, you see samurai or samurai-like warriors coming to the defense of the village. This similar concept comes up again in the 4th episode, titled The Village Bride, where a warlord has taken control of a planet with a battle droid army and has forced the former ruler to give up his daughter as collateral in order to prevent any rebellion, otherwise something will happen to her. And again, this concept comes up in the 8th episode, titled Lop and Ocho, where a family is torn between trusting the Empire and its rule of their planet and complete opposition to the Empire. A father is pitted against his own daughter, who is aligned with the Empire, and she doesn't realize that the Empire does not really have her best intentions in mind. In all of the stories where the oppression is present, it is always a small but mighty band of rebels who answer the call and take down the oppressors. They do this because it's the right thing to do, and they want to ensure the safety and survival of those who cannot or choose not to fight for themselves. So the parallels to our world today are very apparent. Some have chosen to speak up and actively protest against the tyranny going on in person, through the written word, or by voices online through podcasts and other videos. Now, there are many who do not feel what is happening is right as well, but either do not know how to speak up or are afraid to speak up. So it's up to all of us who are willing to answer that call and to stand up for those people against this medical tyranny and censorship and other control mechanisms meant to oppress us and keep us down. Another concept you see in this series, which is very present in most sci-fi, is transhumanism. However, it's transhumanism in reverse. On prior episodes, we've talked about Darth Vader and General Grievous, who are both human characters that became fitted with cybernetic attachments after a physical tragedy. In the episode titled TOB1, we actually see a droid that starts to become part human. This character was created by an elderly professor who we come to find out was a Jedi Master in the past. The character TOB1, or Toby, continually has visions and thoughts about being a Jedi himself, although he is only truly a droid. While he's looking for a kyber crystal, the power source of a lightsaber, he finds an old battleship and attempts to radio other Jedi in the universe, just as kind of a joke. However, a Sith intercepts this message, comes to the planet, and kills the professor. Toby then faces off against this Sith, soon realizing that he can use a lightsaber and has Jedi skills, and defeats the Sith. You know, the concept of robots becoming human is very scary when you think of the real-world connotations. One example being artificial intelligence. With AI, robots can constantly learn more and more about whatever their function is, and can, in a metaphorical sense, become more human. They can predict human behaviors, interact with humans, and possibly do many more devious things as well. This concept terrifies me. The most troubling element of this series to me was the story that it ended on. Most of the stories ended with a somewhat positive tone about good overcoming evil, but the final story, titled Akakiri, ended with a Jedi turning to the dark side. The main character, Tsubaki, kept seeing visions of someone dying and in pain, which was an obvious parallel to Anakin and his visions of Padme and his mother. Although, in this episode, you don't see exactly who the vision is about until the very end. Tsubaki travels with his friend Misa to face off against a Sith named Masago. Now, Masago had killed her own brother, the king, and took over the palace and the kingdom for herself. When they approach Masago, Misa is immediately captured, and Tsubaki attempts to face off against Masago. As he attempts to fight off her masked palace guards, he strikes one down with his lightsaber. However, to his surprise, he finds out it was his friend Misa. This was the vision that he'd been experiencing. This was the person who was struck down and killed in his dreams, his friend. The Sith Masago had force-controlled her and disguised her in the guard uniform as a ruse to utterly gut Tsubaki emotionally. He tries to save Misa, but Masago tells him that she can only be saved if he becomes her Sith apprentice, and they use her powers to heal her. Tsubaki, in his grief and distress, agrees to this, and is able to use the dark side to save Misa through the Force. However, the irony is that he is now bound in servitude to Masago as a Sith, and has to leave Misa behind. And that's how the series ends. And it ends with disturbing occult-like drum music, like the taiko Japanese drums enchanting, and a dark red and black that's kind of covering the screen thematically and physically. This kind of really caught me off guard. Like I said, some of the episodes had happy endings, and some of them were pretty playful and fun. But why would they leave this dark imagery as the last thing we see? It didn't seem appropriate to me, but maybe there was some ritualistic reason that they did this, unbeknownst to us. Also interesting to me is that in the first episode, The Duel, the Sith who was struck down by the Ronin Jedi was a woman. And in the last episode, the Wandering Jedi became a Sith apprentice to a woman. So you can kind of see the rhyming nature there. However, in behind-the-scenes footage, the director of that final episode, Akakiri, mentioned that she decided on the Sith Masago being a woman because, quote, "If we made the character into a woman, it would make the character more layered. So Masago is a woman, but she's very powerful." End quote. Let's talk about that quote in two parts. The jury is out on the sentiment that making this character a woman made the character inherently more layered. I don't necessarily think a character in a series being a man or a woman makes the character inherently any better or worse. If it's a good character, it's a good character. Now let's tackle that last half of the quote. It almost seems to imply a sexist undertone against women, where she said, quote, "She's a woman, but she is powerful," as if to say women aren't normally powerful. This is a really weird circumstance where it seems that the creatives are simultaneously putting down women at the same time they're trying to lift up women. It just seems a little odd to me. So that does it for this episode. All in all, the message I took from this is to keep fighting against the empires of today. Although you may seem outnumbered, the zeal and passion you can spread into the world can move mountains, and can cause positive change and influence others, even when all hope seems lost. And don't give in to dark side temptations. The devil and Lucifer try to turn us towards evil deeds through tricks and manipulation, and by saying that, by giving in to what they want, it's the only way to save those you love. But like Tsubaki and Anakin, we know that that is not the case. You can never win by aligning yourself with evil. God bless, and may the Force be with you.